Alright, here we are. Welcome back to the Shatter and Breathe podcast, episode 10. I am Sean, and I wholeheartedly would like to thank you for being here once again. Today is our first ever Casual Friday episode, where it's pretty much just me, the microphone, some bullet points, and you wonderful people who have blessed me with your time today. Whatever day it may be that you're listening to this. I'm recording this right now on Thursday morning, February 3rd. I'm trying to make sure that when I record Casual Friday, it is as close to the day it comes out as possible, because the point of it is to kind of just take a break from the usual format and just kind of talk to you guys about whatever, like how life's going right now and how the podcast is doing and updates like that. So it kind of would defeat the purpose if I recorded it a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks prior to it even coming out. So, as convenient as it would be to get these done earlier, which I'm trying to do with all my episodes, Casual Friday is sort of the exception. So, it is just less than 24 hours before you're hearing this, if you are listening to it off drop. So I just thank you genuinely for being here and coming by with me. I don't know if it's going to be a full hour, to be honest. However, I'm hoping it is. It is decently lengthy, just so I don't feel like I've wasted your week if you were looking forward to this episode. So genuinely, I do want to thank you for being here and giving me your time this week, last week, any time you listen to this podcast. I truly appreciate you. Because it's cliche to say sometimes, but I'm not doing this to talk to nobody, so the fact that you're listening to me, the fact that you appreciate me, you appreciate this podcast, the content, enough to where you dedicate time to listen, and listen, if you know me or if you've been following the podcast, my focus isn't the greatest. I have horrible focus. It seems like it is a rare pleasantry when I can completely dedicate focus to something for longer than 10 minutes. So, and that's as being a little embellishing, but focus is something that I do struggle with, and so the fact somebody would listen to me for an hour, I can't even stay listening to myself for an hour, because the editing process of these episodes is my most hated part of the process, because it's just, I'm sitting here listening to myself for an hour, over an hour really, because the episode itself takes an hour, so I have about an hour 20, hour 30 worth of me talking that I'm going through and editing down, getting rid of all the ums and the dead space and all that sort of thing. So I hate listening to myself for that long. So the fact that you guys listen to me for an hour every week, if you are repeat listeners, I can't give you enough praise. I can't give you enough appreciation. So honestly, thank you so much for being here. If this is your first episode, if for whatever reason your introduction to me and this podcast is this episode, I welcome you aboard, and I encourage you strongly to go check out the other episodes where I just go over different topics, different themes, and go into details about my perspective on things and my outlook on things. When people ask me in person, what's your podcast about? I find myself struggling to really give a definition because, well, one, I have anxiety, and I have difficulty sometimes expressing myself fully without, I think I have this weird complex of, I don't like potentially being misunderstood, so I try to, the best way I can, explain myself in situations and what things are. So with the podcast, sometimes I think I put myself in a box to where I'm so worried to explain it wrong that I fail at explaining it much at all, if that makes sense. But if you're listening and you're not familiar with the podcast yet, it is a lot of self-awareness. That's one of the key tools for this podcast. I launched it because I wanted to be able to get out of my bubble a little bit, vent my thoughts, share my perspective, hopefully be able to tell others that perhaps their way of thinking isn't just them. I think we all have that moment where it's kind of how a lot of friendships are made, where you hear somebody talking about something and expressing their way of viewing it, or their perspective on it, and you're like, oh, I thought that was just me. I didn't think anybody else thought that way. Things like that. And that's one of the big driving forces of this podcast, is connection, relatability, and also in the other direction, open-mindedness, and being able to listen to a different perspective or a different way of viewing something and relating to something, and possibly having it change the way you see something. I don't claim to know it all. You see what I mean about the ums? I'm gonna say probably 500 times, so I do apologize, because I'm not going to try to edit this too much. Bits here and there, sure, but I'm trying to make these casual episodes are going to be as transparent as it gets with me. See? So just I apologize. But getting back on track, it's in the opposite direction of people seeing open-mindedness and a different view on something they've been looking at. You know, you look at a building from one side of the street, on the other side of it, it could look like a completely different building. It could look day and night, where one side has a beautiful presentation, clean windows, doors coming in, opening, shut, and open, people walking in and out. And on the other side of it, it could look like it's abandoned. It could look completely different. So when you're provided with another perspective on something, it can really give you a bigger picture, a better picture, that's either going to validate or it's going to challenge the way you think of something. So that's one of the big goals of this podcast, is perspective and open-mindedness, consideration, relatability, not feeling so alone in the world. It's also a lot about self-growth. The name Shatter and Breathe came from the concept, and I explained in episode 1, I believe, but the concept of the name is the fact that sometimes we do have to fall apart to really take in a much needed breath and understand ourselves. Sometimes we really gotta stop in order to really look around. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do here. And I'm trying to do it with a lot of different subject matter. A lot of it is heavily on mental health, which is very important, and I don't think it can get a big enough spotlight on, as well as physical health, emotional health. So, like I said before, self-awareness is a big driving force. It is so important because it really is the difference between how somebody handles things, how somebody reacts, how somebody allows themselves to grow, to understand, to comprehend. So I think if I'd have to tell somebody three big things, or three keywords on what Shatter and Breathe is, one of those keywords would be self-awareness. So if any of that interests you, then I highly encourage you to check it out. Check out the previous episodes. Check out what we got coming up. Next week's episode is called It's Okay to Love, where I talk about different ways you love, how love is different for some people than others, or how people perceive love to be, when really it's sometimes clouded by other things, to where people think love is one thing that it's not. If that makes sense. It'll make more sense next week when it's out, but yeah, look forward to that. After that episode, it's episode 12, Clocking Addiction, where I talk about addiction and the way some people who are addicts, who do struggle with demons in that capacity, are looked at and viewed, and how it is from an outsider looking in. Because I'm not an addict, the closest thing I could think of something I would be addicted to of a substance matter would be caffeine, but I don't see myself as a caffeine addict. I think that's I think labeling yourself with something as heavy, I think labeling yourself with something as heavy as the word addict is kind of a slap to the face of actual addicts and actual people struggling. And the big driving force behind that episode is, like what I just said, they're not just addicts, they're people. And I think it's important to really remember that. Sometimes, especially right now with media, epidemics, and just the struggle with drugs in society right now, people sometimes forget that those people are just like them, they're people. And I think it's important to really remember that. So that's what Clocking Addictions are going to be about. After that, it's going to be Sonder and Change, where we talk about a little bit of an outer body type of understanding or observing, as well as dealing with change. So, and change is something I deal with, and change is something I have a hard time dealing with too. So that's going to be a heavily understanding episode, because I'm also trying my best to deal with that better too. So I'm looking forward to both of those episodes. And after that, I don't think I have that one locked in yet, but there's definitely some good episodes coming out in the next couple weeks. So I hope you stick around for that if this is your first one. If you're a repeat listener, and I'm not stopping this train. I'm gonna try to keep going as long as I can. Good point to talk about that. I'm not sure yet if I'm going to do a season thing. Right now, another reason this episode is important. Casual Friday series anyway, is I get to really be kind of putting my thought process out there for the podcast and things like that. I'm considering doing 20 episodes, and which would be another 10 after this, and then doing a break, not a long one, but just a little in between, and considering doing that as the format, 20 episode seasons, which in between seasons I could try to really just catch up with the next season and get a head start on it, to where I'd be able to have more time to think about more content, think about more avenues of things for this podcast and for the shop itself too. So I would love feedback on that from anyone listening, what you think about that idea, to do 20 episode seasons, then take a break for a certain amount of time, not too long. If that is the route I go, it won't be a super long break. Maybe a month. Maybe 2, but I think even 2 months would be pretty long. So, just an idea. I could hit 20 and I could already have enough to really keep going. So, at this point, it's just a thought process and trying to think about the longevity, trying to think about my own mental health, my own dealings. Because sometimes burnout does happen. And it happened to me. That's why between COVID and burnout, that's what put a halt in these episodes. And why we're a month behind, technically speaking. So I think that's why it's a good possibility to do a break where it will give me time to really reset a little bit, so I can keep giving you guys what quality I feel like I need to give you guys. A big reason why I stopped doing episodes for a while to get over COVID, to get back to being able to do it how I want to do it, is because I could have still put out episodes. I still could have put them out, but you would have heard it in the recording. You would have heard it in my voice. You would have heard me not really being there. And I'm not giving you guys a phone in. Doing this was a struggle because I was recording episode 11, next week's episode, early last week, and I lost 47 minutes of recording because my battery died on my laptop. And I was things like that, when things happen that way, it will completely crush my motivation. So even doing this episode was a struggle for me, because it took me a long time to really soak myself into my mindset of getting this done and getting it done right, because you guys deserve that. I'm not taking your time for granted. I refuse to take your interest for granted. I'm not going to phone in something just so I can get something to you guys, because it's going to reflect. It's going to show. And I care too much about this podcast and you guys who listen to this podcast and bless me with your time and attention to just phone it in or give you something I feel is less than you deserve. So that's things I'm taking into consideration for this break, seasonal break, things like that. So it's not set in stone, but it's just an idea I'm putting out there, and I would love feedback on what you guys think about that. So right now I'm going to go over, like I said, I got bullet points to help me through this. So I'm going to try to now talk about how I'm feeling with the podcast now that it's out for 10 episodes. I'm very happy with it. Despite the hardships, I really love this. I really enjoy it. I like when somebody sees me and maybe they haven't checked it out, or they'll comment on a post I make and they ask me about, hey, what's your podcast about? It things like that. They're so small, but at the same time, it's a nice feeling. It's a great feeling, because especially if you deal with self-confidence issues, and you feel like sometimes we get into a headspace where we feel insignificant, like we're just kind of here, you know what I mean? So when somebody asked me, hey, what's your podcast about? It's so small on paper, but it's one of those things where it's like you're doing something to pique interest. You're doing something that is there enough that somebody's able to ask you about it. It kind of combats your feeling insignificant or feeling as if you're just kind of there when somebody asks you about something that you have a hand in, or in this case with me, something that you've manifested yourself. So it's almost kind of like a something you've put into this world that is outside of yourself. When somebody acknowledges that thing, it almost makes you feel branched out and not just like a stump. You know, it de-stumpifies you, I guess you could say. So just things like that is really special to me. And just the hopes of it growing, reaching strangers, reaching people that don't know me, and being able to feel that connection or feel that appreciation for somebody that you don't know on a personal level. You don't know on a personal level, but somehow the universe has made it to where you can listen to them. You can listen to somebody who you can relate to so soothingly without the pressures of social awkwardness or interaction. Because when you hear somebody online, especially through a podcast format or music, there is no social awkwardness. There is no expectations. It is just you. You're just listening to just them. It is just a very pure connection that I am eager to get more of, to hear more about. I want to get to the point where there's so many people that listen that I can have a chat feed or comment section where I can be like, hey, where are you from? Like, how'd this reach you? Things like that. And right now where it's at, it's mainly just, I don't know of anyone personally right now who I don't know that listens. But if you don't know me and you're listening right now, that's proving what I know of right now to be false. So I'm so grateful that you're here too. And I would love for you to make yourself known somehow, but joining the Facebook group, commenting on YouTube if that's where you're listening. Any way you can make yourself known. I want to know you. I want to see you. I want to see that you're listening, because that kind of thing just means a lot to me. And I want you to know that you can reach out through the Facebook page and comments and things like that. Email, even. Just connection is something that I am very much looking forward to in the podcast, and I'm hoping to see it grow to a point where that's an abundance of different people, different souls, different lives. I live by the concept of every person you meet is a book, and so no person you meet is a waste, because every person you meet is a book with their own story, their own chapters, their own origin, their own journey, goals. Every person is a book, and there is no book that is wasting paper. So that's kind of just one of the ways I live, and that's kind of where I want to see the podcast go. And as of right now, 10 episodes in, we're slowly growing. I can say it is a slow growth, but it's getting there. It is definitely getting there. And it didn't help when I took a month off, because that was a month where I could have been trying to promote it better. And one of my struggles is promotion, because sometimes I'm like, is anybody going to care? Is anybody going to concern themselves with it, to click the link or to check out something new? Because as my wonderful friends who constantly share and react and support this podcast and my design work, like, as much as I love them and I appreciate them and I cherish them, that's a handful of wonderful people against, like, just from my Facebook, as an example, I will get maybe on a good week 5 reacts, 5 shares, like on a good week, and I have almost 500 Facebook friends. You know what I mean? I kind of let that sometimes hold me to when it shouldn't, because I'm a person who puts way more value in those who do support me than those who don't. So I am trying my best to not let the ones who don't support me hold me from reaching more people that will. You know what I mean? Reaching more people that will take interest. And that's one of the things that helps motivate me. Because I don't like the idea, I hate the idea, honestly, that because of person 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 not supporting or not caring, they're going to stop potentially that person 11 who's really going to take something from this podcast, take something from what I'm saying and relate to it, and possibly even help them in a way they need help. And I'm not going to let the ones who don't support it stop me from reaching those who will, or reaching those who need it, who need to have relatability with somebody's mindset or perspective, if that makes sense. So that's one of the reasons why I am pushing to keep this going, because I want to see it grow. I want it to reach some people, and I know there's people out there. You listening right now is proof. There's people out there who's going to hear this, who's going to hear this podcast or see it somewhere. They're gonna think, I might like this. This might be something I enjoy, something I can relate to, and they're going to click it, and hopefully they stick around and they find whatever they're missing, or they're finding whatever they'd like to add to their life. But there's people out there. I know that for a fact. I'm not going to let my self-conscious or my fear of not being what's the word I'm looking for? Not being desired, for lack of a better way to say it. I'm not going to use that fear to harness the fact that there are people who are going to get help from this podcast, who are going to find relatability, who's going to find a sense of peace. Because I've had somebody tell me that personally. They said they didn't know exactly how they were feeling, but listening to an episode helped them find a sense of peace. It helped them feel better somehow, and they couldn't even explain it themselves. That's what I'm talking about. It's not always so cut and dry and so clear. Sometimes it's just something you need. I've found it in other people, in podcasts and things like that. You know, I know that feeling, and I want to be able to offer that feeling to others. And that's what this podcast is about. So I'm very happy with how the podcast is right now. There's 10 episodes. I got episodes and down the line ready to get out there. And I'm not planning on stopping. I'm planning on this podcast going for a long time. You know, and right now it's and even beyond the personal thing, like the financial aspect of it, right now I'm losing money in this podcast. It's not a whole lot of money right now, but I mean, it cost me to have my streams out. No, it cost me to have my episodes out there. So I'm not making money off this right now, and I'm planning on that to change, however it can. So that's the other step I'm in right now, is trying to figure out how best to monetize and make money off this, and at the same time not sacrificing the podcast integrity by slapping on all these ads and different things like that. So I'm consciously trying to work out a way to monetize and make something from this on a financial level as well, and I'm hoping that can happen. But the core of this podcast has always been, and it will be, the value of it on a human level. I'm never going to subject this podcast to something it's not, because I could maybe make some more money that way. I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm financially, money is important. I'm not gonna say money's meaningless. It's important, but human life, mental health, that one person who feels alone right now, finding something to help them know, not think, but help them know they're not alone, that is more valuable than money. So I'm not going to subject this platform in order to maybe make more money. I'm not doing that. So I'm trying to figure out the best way to monetize and make an income while keeping the integrity, keeping the core, keeping the heart, and not subjecting you guys to things that would ruin the experience or ruin the immersion. So that's one of the phases I'm in right now, and trying to figure that out. Which a great time to mention right now. I added a Cash App option on the Linktree, and I wanted to explain that because there's a stigma right now with people who have like Cash Apps in their Twitter bio and Instagram and things like that. There's terms that gets thrown around all the time, beggars or desperate or whatever. But that was the only way I could think of to put that avenue out there in terms of like donations and things like that. If you wanted to financially support me and the podcast, you can through the Cash App. You're not required to. I'm honestly not expecting anyone to at this moment because it is still early in the podcast, and I'm not going to ask. I haven't put it in any postings. I haven't did anything like that, because I'm not trying to put that out there and kind of make it seem like I'm doing this and asking you for money. And you know what I mean? Like it's hard for me to ask for money from anybody, but I'm not ignorant to the fact that donations are a thing. When channels on YouTube get popular, they do donations, even though they make a lot of money off of ads and stuff like that. So I am aware that people will donate to what they enjoy. I've done it myself. So it's there as an option. It's not there as an obligation or an expectancy. But if you would like to donate to me or the podcast, that's the avenue where you can do that. So if you do, I thank you absolutely for it. But if not, it's completely okay. It's just there as an option. And besides the whole Cash App thing, you could look on the shop too. I mean, I don't make 100% profit off of my shop designs, but I do make something off of it. That's another wonderful way to support Shatter and Breathe, is through the shop, buying merch, things like that. Every design on the shop is my design. If I do take an image from somebody else, I will attribute them in the description if I'm able to. For example, my last design as of this episode was my design for last week's episode called Barking Orders. I believe that's what the design's called, what I called it. But it's a dog, and it has little volume markers to show he's barking, and on top it says "Don't bark orders," and underneath it says "If you're too lazy to wag your tail." The dog on that image, on that graphic, I didn't draw that dog. I didn't take that picture. I got it off of Pixabay, and I went to credit the person who took the photo, and they took their name off of the website, so I couldn't do that. But I intended to, because I'm not going to claim I drew something or I took a picture that I didn't. So if I do take an image like that, I will attribute it as well. But everything on that is conceptualized by me. I did every design on the shop, and I try to get it on as much product as I can. So another good way to support me is buying merch off the shop, or if you're inclined to, you can donate through the Cash App, because I do want to upgrade the audio. I want to I want to be able to buy better audio equipment as well as means to record. Because right now my setup is I got a PlayStation mic connected to my laptop, and I can't even move the jack without worrying about the quality going down. So it is an absolute corner garage setup without the garage. It is not a fancy setup whatsoever, but that's okay. It gets the job done for now. But I'm hoping to be able to upgrade and have a better system of recording and things like that. So, as well as when I edit the episodes, my desktop that I edit the videos on and I edit the audio is not the fastest computer setup that there is. So that's one of the reasons why editing is such a pain in my ass, because it sometimes it just is so slow and it just infuriates me. So it gets taxing. But once the episode's done and it's ready to go and out there, it's worth it. But certainly if I'm financially able, I am hoping to upgrade as much as I can. But realistically, price-wise, the audio upgrade is the first thing I'm trying to do. So that's all coming regardless. But just I'll mention it one more time, and I'm not going to mention it again. If you want to support, check out the shop, absolutely. And if you want to just donate straight towards me without middlemen, you can just donate through Cash App. And either way, I truly appreciate it. Speaking about the shop though, not so much purchasing, but just kind of an idea for the shop. I am looking to start getting back into doing more designs, trying to release them more frequently. And I don't know if I want to say it on this episode. I'm probably not going to say it on this episode what my next big plan for the shop is. But what I will say is, only because I'm not sure on the details quite yet, but what I will say is, if you're somebody who likes my designs but don't necessarily want to buy clothing, or maybe the clothing is too expensive, I am working on a way to get you these designs in a way where they won't be on clothing. You'll be able to appreciate them in person and look at them without having to wear them. So I'll leave it at that, but I am working on something along those lines, and I'm really looking forward to getting it done and getting it out there. But I am intending on putting more designs out in the shop. But all of my past designs, I don't do limited merch. I'm not limited, but I don't do timed merch. I don't really understand that, besides, the quick cash grab aspect of it. But all my designs are still up on the shop, and unless some reason Spreadshirt does something odd, I don't plan on them ever going away. Even if I'd switch websites, all my designs are staying. I don't plan on getting rid of any of them. So they're all still there, and I'm definitely looking forward to getting some more out there. As far as the podcast future, I already touched on considering doing seasons, doing a break, but also I have some guest episodes coming up, and I'm really looking forward to that. I got at least 4 in the magazine right now, just getting ready to be chambered, so I'm looking forward to that. So definitely looking forward to that. That's another reason why that's a bit on hold until I get a better audio setup to where I can have 2 mics and have a way to record it realistically with me and the guests. So that's kind of on hold, but that is definitely coming because I love the idea too much not to do it. I already got 3 episodes titled and themed up and ready to start recording, and I got a 4th one that isn't set in stone yet, but it would be a really good episode, so look for that down the line for sure. Time wise, I can't give you a timestamp. I can't give you a deadline for when it's happening, but it's going to happen. I will be damned if it does not happen, because there are going to be some great episodes. Also, and I already said I'm not going to talk more about financial support, but I forgot to mention, I am looking into a Patreon type of subscription. I don't know what to put on it yet, though. I have ideas that I'm working through to where it's worth the subscription. I'm not trying to just throw things up there and be like, alright, give me your money, or you can't get these things. It's going to be something, if the Patreon launches, it's going to be something where I feel it's worth it. So I'm not going to try to get money out of you if it's not something that's going to be worth your while. So I am working on getting a Patreon going to eventually, and trying to figure out what the content is going to be on that Patreon to make it worth subscribing to. So that's definitely something in the works too. And also, I've also been considering just doing some variant of a live talk. Where I would do it, I don't know. I don't know if I would do a YouTube live or a Twitch live. I don't know yet for certain. If you're listening and you have an input on that, I would love your input, your feedback, what you would recommend. But I do like the idea of doing a live talk because I want that interaction. I want to be able to go back and forth with you guys and kind of just interact and meet you guys and talk. And that's something I look forward to. So look to see eventually some kind of live streaming thing going on. Again, I don't know about a time or a deadline, but I'm looking forward to doing something in that avenue as well. I just want to see this grow. You know, I really just want to see this podcast grow. I want to make people proud. I want to reach what potential I feel like I have. I want to make a difference. I just want to reach as many people that need to be reached. Not in a quota way, not in a planned way, but exactly what I said. I want to reach everybody that needs reached. And that ain't going to happen if I give up. That's not going to happen if I give in to my self-conscious, my insecurities. If I start to place those who don't support ahead of those who do. That's an insult to myself. That's an insult to those who support me. You guys right now listening. I feel like I say it a lot, but I can't say it enough. I truly thank you guys. I truly thank you guys. I thank God so much for the fact that people care enough to listen. People care enough to look forward to the episode, to wait for the episode, to get excited about it. One of my biggest hyping supporters is Courtney, and she'll message me and be like, yo, can't wait for it, can't wait for the new episode. And it's just things like that just mean so much to me, because it really takes me out of that negative space, and it really kind of reels me in, and I appreciate her so much for that. And when Kelsey will mention it to me, where she'll say, so I'm catching up on the podcast, and things like when you put something out there and somebody is just giving you the time and investing their time into it, it's just things like that you can't put a price on. You can't put a trade value on it. That's something special. That's something that you can't replace with anything other than gratitude and appreciation. And everyone else who supports me and just listens, you guys included especially, because this is an episode completely unstructured and full of hiccups and ums, and you're still listening. So God bless you guys. It's been a hard month. January was a bit of a rough month. Gotten some news and different things we're going through right now, but we're going to get through them. And I'm pretty sure I got COVID again beginning of the year. I by the time I got my test, it came back negative. But just how I was feeling all month, and even now, the way I've been feeling, I feel like I did have it, because it honestly felt identical to October, November, except like cut in half. Like, it wasn't as severe, but I definitely believe I had it again the beginning of the year, because people I was around, at least 2 of them tested positive. One of them was sick but didn't go get tested, and the other one, they got tested but they came back negative. So I was around it, and just from how I was feeling afterwards, and still to this day I'm feeling, I'm pretty sure I got it again, but I don't know 100%. But I just been dealing with that, and the headspace has been bad, the depression has been bad, but I'm getting through it. Going back to therapy has been really nice. I've only had 2 sessions, and they weren't even real full sessions, because there was a lot of paperwork and forming a foundation, so to speak. So now my next appointment will be the first full hour of actual therapy, and I'm looking forward to that. And anybody out there who feels like they might need help, and you're financially able to, or you have insurance that's going to allow you to see somebody, I highly recommend it. If you do get help from this podcast in that way, that is something that I couldn't say how flattered I am in that regard. I'm not a professional, though. I never claimed to be. So, if you need help, please seek help. Don't feel ashamed to do so. There is nothing wrong with going to therapy. There's nothing wrong with help. There's nothing wrong with calling a hotline if things are just a little too much sometimes. There's no shame in preserving yourself, preserving your life or your mental health or anything. There's no shame in any of it. There's strength in it. So please, if you need to help getting through something, find it. And if that's what I do for you, I'm so glad, and I'm going to keep doing it for you as long as I can. But take care of you, please. Please take care of you. And I think that's pretty much wraps it up for this episode. I'm not sure what else I could talk about that wouldn't be just repetitive topics or thoughts. So I think I'll cap it off right about now. If I'm not mistaken, this should be around, I don't know if we've made quite 50 minutes or not, but like I said at the beginning, I wasn't sure if this would reach an hour or not, and if it didn't, I do apologize. But again, I don't want to just kind of fill an hour with saying the same thing over and over again. I just wanted to really get on here and talk with you guys, touch base, kind of give you some ideas I have for the future. And I feel like I did that. I hope I did that. Let me know if I did that. Like I said, feedback, and like I said, feedback is just so important to me. It helps me realize if I'm doing things right, if I'm doing things wrong, if I could do things better. And I just want to do the best I can with the platform I'm trying to get, and that I already have. So if you're here, thank you so much. Thank you so much for giving me your time, giving me your attention. Let me share this morning with you, or whatever time you're listening to this. I truly thank you so much, and I just love you guys so much for you being here and helping this platform grow, helping this podcast get bigger, because it's through you guys that this is going to grow. Because the more people that listen, the more people that can hear about it, and I have a good feeling that it's going to go good places. So you guys are in that journey with me. So again, thank you for coming back this week. If this is your first episode, please stick around, check out the other episodes, see if it's something you'd be interested in. Check out the shop. Subscribe to the YouTube like and follow the Facebook page to keep up to date. I'm going to try to start getting more on Twitter and Instagram and other social medias, because I know not everyone's on Facebook. So I'm going to try to get back into I'm going to try to get onto Twitter more and sharing things out, and Instagram. But right now, the most up-to-date place to stay, well, up-to-date, it's kind of self-explanatory, but the most up-to-date platform right now, as far as what's going on, what's coming out, is Facebook. So definitely go and follow that. And I look forward to you guys next week. Remember, next week is going to be episode 11, It's Okay to Love, where we talk about love and all its beautiful forms, and how some people may see it a certain way, if it's really love they're thinking about, or as if it's what somebody has convinced them love is. So stay tuned for that. Thank you again for listening. I look forward to seeing you next week. I hope the rest of your day is as beautiful and as wonderful as you are. This is the Shatter and Breathe podcast. I'm Sean, and as always, be safe, be thankful, and may God bless every single one of you.